5 years ago, my life took a turn I never could have anticipated. I was sitting in our modest living room, the flickering light of a single lamp casting shadows across the worn-out furniture. My wife, Elena, stood by the window, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, her face a mask of frustration and disbelief. The argument had been brewing for weeks, a slow simmer that finally boiled over that night. As each had grown tired of our financial struggles, the endless cycle of scraping by on my meager salary as a freelance graphic designer. I could see it in her eyes, the disappointment, the resentment, the unspoken question of who SH had tied her life to a man who couldn't private the life SH dreamed of. I'll never forget the way SH looked at him that night, her blonde hair catching the dim light as SH turned to face him fully. I can't do this anymore, Alex, SH said, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and exhaustion. I thought things would get better, but they're not. We're drowning, and I can't keep pretending this is enough. Her words cut deeper than I expected, but I couldn't blame her. We had been married for 3 years, and every month felt like a battle to pay the rent, keep the lights on, and put food on the table. I worked long hours, taking on any project I could find, but the freelance world was unpredictable. Some months were fast, others famine, and Elena had grown weary of the uncertainty. I wanted to tell her the truth, that I wasn't the failure SH thought I was. That beneath the surface of our struggling life, I had a secret that could change everything. But I couldn't, not yet. 5 years earlier, before we even met, I had inherited a fortune from my distant grandfather, a reckless billionaire who had built his wealth in real estate and tech investments. The sum was staggering, $500 США a million, stashed away in a trust fund that I had kept hidden from everyone, including Elena. My grandfather had been a paranoid man, distrustful of others' motives, and he made a promise to keep the inheritance a secret until I was certain of the people in my life. I had honored that promise, living a double life, working odd jobs while the money sat untouched, waiting for the right moment to reveal it. That moment never came. When Elena and I met, I was drawn to her warmth, her laughter, the way SH seemed to see the world with a kind of hopeful innocence. I fell in love quickly, and I wanted to build a life with her based on something real, not my money, but our connection. I decided to keep the inheritance a secret, thinking I could reveal it later, on as we were settled and SH loved him for who I was, not what I called private. But as the years passed and our financial struggles mounted, that plan began to unravel. Elena's patience wore thin, and I couldn't find the courage to tell her the truth. I feared she think it'd been lying all along, that our marriage had been built on a foundation of deceit. That night, as SH stood by the window, SH delivered the final blow. I'm feeling for divorce, Alex, SH said, her voice steady now, as if SH had rehearsed the words. I deserve more than this. I deserve a life where I don't have to worry about every penny. I stared at her, my heart sinking, but I couldn't argue. I loved her too much to hold her back, even if it meant letting her go. SH packed a bag that night and left, leaving me alone in the apartment with nothing but the hum of the refrigerator and the weight of my secret. The days that followed were a blur. I moved through my routine mechanically, waking up, working on designs, eating alone, but my mind was elsewhere. I replayed every moment of our marriage, wondering if I could have done something differently. Should I have told her about the money? Would it have changed her mind, or would it have driven an even deeper wedge between us? I couldn't shake the image of her walking out the door, the sound of it clicking should echoing in my ears. The trust fund, which had once felt like a safety net, now felt like a curse, a burden I couldn't share with anyone. Weeks turned into months, and I decided to leave the city. The memories of Elena were too painful, too intertwined with every street corner and coffee shop we'd visited together. I packed up my belongings, sold the apartment, and moved to a small coastal town a few hours away. The chance of scenery helped, but it didn't erase the ash. I rented a modest house by the sea. It is whited wooden walls and salty air, a stark contrast to the life I could have lived with my fortune. I continued my freelance work, but now it felt more like a way to pass the time than a necessity. За $500 США a million sat in it a second, untouched, a silent reminder of the life it lost. In the quiet of my new home, I began to reflect on my choice. My grandfather's paranoia had shaped my decisions, but was it fair to let it dictate my life? I had kept the secret to protect myself, to end that anyone who loved and did so for the right reasons. But in doing so, I had pushed away the one person I cared about most. Elena had left believing I was a struggling artist with no future, and I let her go without a fight. The irony wasn't lost on my will, meant to secure my happinesses, had instead isolated them. As the months stretched into years, I tried to rebuild. I made a few friends in the town, learned to surf, and even started painting again, something I hadn't done since before Elena. The ocean became my solace, its rhythm a steady companion in my solitude. But every so often, it catch myself wondering about her where SH was, what SH was doing, if SH were tagged OFM. I resisted the urge to look her up, to reach out. The divorce had been finalized quietly, and I had signed the papers without contesting anything. SH deserved her freedom, I told myself, even if it meant I had to live with the consequences. 4 years after SH left, I received a letter in the mail. It was from a lawyer, informing me that Elena had remarried. The news hit me like a wave crashing against the shore, unexpected and overwhelming. I sat on my porch, the letter trembling in my hands, as I processed the reality. SH had moved on, built a new life, while I remained anchored to the past. The lawyer's letter included a postscript, a personal note from Elena, thanking him for not making the divorce difficult and wishing him well. It was polite, ditched, a factory from the woman who had honestly lied with him over bearing dinners and danced with him in our teeny kitchen. That night, I walked to the edge of the beach, the sun cool beneath my feet, and stared out at the dark water. For the first time, I considered accessing the trust fund. Not to win her back, that ship had sailed, but to give myself a new start. I had lived in the shadow of my grandfather's will for too long, letting it define my silence. Maybe it was time to let it define my future instead. I didn't know what that future would look like, but I knew I couldn't keep living half alive. The next morning, I contacted the trust's administrator and began the process of unlocking the phone NDS. It was a strange feeling, signing the paperwork that would release $500 США a million into my control. Part of me felt liberated, but another part felt a pang of regret. If only I had told Elena years ago, could we have avoided this pain? The question lingered, unanswered, as I started to plan my next chapter. A few weeks later, I decided to travel. I sold the coastal house and used a portion of the money to buy a small villa in Italy, a place I'd always dreamed of visiting. The rolling hills and ancient streets offered a fresh perspective, and for the first time in years, I felt a flicker of hope. I met new people, explored new cultures, and slowly began to heal. The money gave me freedom, but it also forced me to confront the cost of my secrecy. One day, while sipping espresso at a cafe in Florence, I saw a familiar face across the square. It was Elena, her arm linked with a man I assumed was her new husband. SH looked happy, radiant even, and I felt a mix of joy and sorrow. SH hadn't seen him, and I didn't approach. Instead, I watched from a distance, grateful that SH had found the life SH wanted, even if it wasn't with him. As I finished my coffee and walked away, I realized that my journey was just beginning. The $500 США a million was mine to use, but the lessons of the past would guide them forward. The second part will follow. focusing on the aftermath and Alex's new path, unless you private further instructions or confirm continuation. 5 years had passed since Elena walked out of my life, and the encounter in Florence marked a turning point I hadn't anticipated. As I left the cafe that day, the image of her smiling with her new husband lingered in my mind, a bittersweet reminder of what once was. I wandered the cobblestone streets, the evening air cool against my skin, and found myself at a small bridge overlooking the Arno River. The water reflected the golden lights of the city, and for the first time in years, I felt a strange sense of peace. The $500 США a million in my bank account had driven the means to escape, to rebuild, but it was the quiet moments like this that began to mend the fractures in my soul. Back at my villa, I sat on the terrace with a glass of wine, the distant hum of the town settling into the night. I had used a portion of the inheritance to furnish the place with car, soft leather chairs, a grand oak table, and artwork it collected from local artists. It was a factory from the cramped apartment Elena and I had shared, yet the luxury felt hollow without someone to share it with. I had traveled across Europe, from the canals of Venice to the mountains of Switzerland, but the solitude followed them. The money had opened doors, but it hadn't filled the void as age left behind. One evening, as I sorted through old sketchbooks, I came across a drawing as it made during our marriage, images of Elena lying, her hair catching the sunlight, or us dancing in the kitchen to a song on the radio. The memories flooded back, and with them, a realization I had let fear dictate my life for too long. My grandfather's paranoia had kept silent, but Elena's departure had taught that honesty, even painful honesty, was worth more than a fortune. I decided it was time to let go of the past, not just the pain, but the secrecy that had defined them. I hired a financial advisor to help manage the trust fund, turning my attention to something meaningful. With the advisor's guidance, I established a foundation to support struggling artists, and not to my own roots as a freelance designer. The idea came to him one night as I watched a street performer in Rome, his passion evident despite his worn-out clothes. I paid millions into the initiative, setting up grants, workshops, and exhibitions. It gave him purpose, a way to honor the life it lived before the money chunked everything. The foundation grew quickly, and soon I was traveling to meet the artists it supported, their gratitude a stark contrast to the isolation it felt. One such trip took them to Paris, where I attended an art gala hosted by the foundation. The grand hall was filled with vibrant paintings and sculptures, the air buzzing with conversation and clinking glasses. As I mingled with the crowd, I noticed a woman across the room, tall, with dark hair and a confident stride. She introduced herself as Claire, a painter whose work had been funded by my grants. Her eyes sparkled with enthusiasm as she spoke about her latest project, a series inspired by the resilience of overlooked communities. There was an to her, a warmth that reminded of Elena but felt distinctly her own. Over the next few weeks, Claire and I spent more time together. We explored Paris, visiting galleries, sharing meals at tiny bistros, and debating the merits of abstract art over classical. She was different from Elena in many ways, her life shaped by years of hustle and creativity rather than dreams of stability. Yet, there was a connection, a mutual understanding that grew with each conversation. I found myself opening up about my past, not the money at first, but the struggles of my early years and the divorce that had reshaped them. Claire listened without judgment, her laughter a balm to my lingering wounds. One night, as we sat on the banks of the Seine, the Eiffel Tower glittering in the distance, I told her about the $500 США million. The words felt heavy, a confession I hadn't planned to make so soon, but her presence made it easier. I kept it a secret, I admitted, because I wanted people to see for not my bank account. But it cost my marriage. Claire looked at her expression thoughtful rather than shocked. That is a heavy burden, she said softly. But it is also a gift, if you use it right. Her words echoed my own thoughts about the foundation, and for the first time, I felt the weight of the secret lift. Our relationship deepened, built on a foundation of trust I hadn't known before. Claire wasn't impressed by the money, as she was intrigued by my story, my drive to make a difference. We collaborated on the foundation, her artistic vision complementing my resources. Together, we expanded its reach, funding projects in underserved regions and hosting international exhibitions. The work kept us busy, but it also brought us closer, a partnership that felt both professional and personal. One day, while reviewing applications in my office, I received an unexpected email. It was from Elena. The subject line read simply, "I saw your name." My heart raced as I opened it. SHE explained that SHE had come across an article about the foundation, linking it to my name, and was stunned to learn of my successes. "I always believed in your talent," SHE wrote, "but I had no idea about the rest. I'm happy for you, Alex." The message was brief, but it carried a sincerity that surprised me. SHE mentioned her husband, a king man named Julian, and their 2-year-old daughter, adding that they lived in Lyon, not far from Paris. I sat back, the email blurring as emotions swirled. Part of me wanted to respond, to bridge the gap of 5 years, but another part knew that chapter was closed. Instead, I replied with a short note, thanking her and congratulating her on her family. I attached a photo of one of the foundation's exhibitions, a subtle way to share my new life without overstepping. Her response came a day later, warm and appreciative, and we exchanged a few more messages over the weeks, settling into a courteous friendship. Meanwhile, my life with Claire flourished. We moved into a charming apartment in Montmartre, its windows overlooking the city's rooftops. The $500 США million allowed us to live comfortably, but it was our shared passion that defined our days. One evening, as we planned a new initiative to support young artists in Africa, Claire turned to me with a smile. "You've turned your pain into something beautiful," SHE said. I realized SHE was right. The fortune, once a source of isolation, had become a tool for connection, a way to honor both my past and my future. The 5-year mark since Elena's departure arrived quietly, marked by a small celebration with Claire and a few close friends from the foundation. As we raised our glasses, I talked about the journey, the pain of losing Elena, the burden of my secret, and the unexpected joy of rebuilding. The $500 США million had been the catalyst, but it was the choice I made with it that shaped my life. I no longer saw it as a curse, but as a second chance. One afternoon, while walking through a market with Claire, I spotted a familiar figure, Elena, holding her daughter's hand, Julian beside her. Our eyes met, and SHE offered a tentative smile. I introduced Claire, and the encounter was brief but cordial. As they walked away, Claire squeezed my hand. "You've done well," SHE whispered. I nodded, feeling the weight of the past lift fully. The money had brought them here, but it was the people, the artists, Claire, even Elena in her new life, who gave it meaning. My future stretched ahead, bright with possibility, and for the first time, I was ready to embrace it.